Krishna, So Srila Prabhupada sums up society. He says there's demoniac civilization where there's no question of Brahmins or Kshatriyas. There are only so-called workers and a flourishing mercantile class who have no goal in life. He says there's no question of Brahmins or Kshatriyas. There are only so-called workers, which means Shudras, and a flourishing mercantile class who have no goal in life. So basically just Shudras and Vaishyas, no Kshatriyas, and no Brahmins. Although they may have a tendency to be Brahminical, like Mayapriti Jnana. There's 4 types of people that don't surrender. Mamduskitana Mudha, Naradama, Mayapriti Jnana, Asuram Bhavam Ashritaha. So the Asura, there's Asuric leaders, they're like demoniac Kshatriyas. There's Mayapriti Jnana, which is scientists who are Brahmins, but their knowledge has now been stolen by illusion. And then Naradama, the sophisticated sense enjoyers of the Vaishyas, and then the gross Shudra, who just likes to enjoy Mudha, just a gross sense enjoyer. So the Shudras and the Vaishyas don't really need training to be Shudras and Vaishyas, because they just make money, or they just do Shudra things, just trying to enjoy themselves. But the Kshatriyas and the Brahmins, although they may have some tendency to want to lead or push people around and fight, it's not been honed properly. So they're not proper Kshatriyas. And the Brahmins, although they may be clever and figure things out, make a few nuclear bombs, they're not proper Brahmins, because they've not been trained properly as to what the goal of life is. So they're still there. The 4 types of people are still there, but they've not been tuned in. And Srila Prabhupada wanted everyone to become Brahmins, and then later on he realized we need Varnashram, because if you don't have those tendencies and you try to train, then generally it's too difficult to achieve those Brahminical qualities. Shiva Ramanuja was saying he only thinks he's got a very few disciples who are actually Brahmins, but his standard of being a Brahmin is very high. But the standard was high for Brahmins in the Vedic culture. So by training, and as we as a society become more established, then also the knowledge, the education will become more established, and then the process of elevation can take place. There has to be knowledge, first of all, cultivated, then training, and then good example, and then Abhideya can take place. First of all, Sambandha is to acquire all the knowledge, and then Abhideya is to apply it. And then as we start to become more mature as a society, there'll be a growing number of people that have achieved prayojana, which is the goal, where they're becoming aware of their swarup, their position in the spiritual world. They're experiencing ruchi, taste for chanting. They're becoming spontaneous, raganuga. Although externally they'll still be following all the rules and regulations, but internally they'll be running to Govardhan and Radhakund, and they'll be doing their duties externally, but internally they'll be thinking of Astakaliya Leela, the 8-fold pastimes. They'll be thinking, Krishna's doing this right now. Krishna's here right now. Radharani's here right now. That will just be there, going on in the back of their minds all the time. So that will happen. There will be a growing number of devotees that have matured and developed to that stage. And then the society will start to become more established, and then we can... And one of the challenges will be, it's called, Pratishta is a whore in the heart that eats the flesh of dogs. And in the beginning, we haven't got that much to be proud of. If we can stay awake, we're doing pretty good. And we can get through a full day of service without trying to kill somebody. then we're doing pretty good, We're just concentrating on it. We haven't really got a lot to be proud of in the beginning. But when you've been around for a while and you're a sannyasi, you've got disciples, that's when the whole can enter into the heart of pratishta, which is prestige. You start becoming proud and thinking, where's my garland? Oh, it's here. Oh, it's okay then. And he didn't, I don't think he paid his obeisances to me when I came in. And he doesn't look too happy to see me. He must be a bogus devotee. And then all the offenses. And then from that one anatta, all the other anattas can come in. So you may have kicked everything else out. Then you become proud. Wow, I'm doing pretty good. And then when that one anatta comes in, all the other ones come back in again. So you can't really at any stage in Krishna consciousness relax and become complacent. And if we do become successful as a society and people recognize us as authorities on yoga and mantra meditation, then the challenge that will come then is that because of all that glorification, again, we could become distracted from the path of pure devotional service. So that's just something in the future as a society we'll have to safeguard against as we become successful. Sometimes success is more dangerous than failure. At least if you're failing, you stay humble. When you get successful, you can get proud. According to the Vedic civilization, the ultimate perfection of life is to take sannyas. But at the present moment, people do not know why sannyas is accepted. Because of misunderstanding, they think that one accepts sannyas to escape social responsibilities. But one does not accept sannyas to escape from responsibilities to society. Generally, one accepts sannyas at the fourth stage of spiritual life. One begins as a brahmachari, and becomes a grihastha, a vanaprastha, and finally a sannyasi to take advantage of the duration of one's life by engaging oneself fully in self-realization. So there's a devotee, he's a sannyasi, Yadunandana Maharaj, and he compiled a book on sannyas. I think he was asked by the GBC because we'd experienced quite a lot of difficulty in devotees maintaining the sannyas ashram. So he did some research on it, and his conclusion was that the highest success rate of sannyasis was those that had been through the grihastha ashram, rather than going straight from brahmachari to sannyas. So they had the t-shirt and they'd been there, so they could fully turn their back on it. They knew there was nothing there. Whereas you go from brahmachari to sannyas, you may still be thinking, maybe it would have been okay, could have had a few kiddies and a few Goswamis or a few Maharajas, as Prana was saying in class. Sannyas does not mean begging from door to door to accumulate money for sense gratification. However, because in Kali Yuga people are more or less prone to sense gratification, immature sannyas is not recommended. Srila Rupa Goswami writes in the Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction. Anyone know without looking? Number 2, Nectar of Instruction. I'll give you the clue. Well, I'll give you the first. Achihara. No sneaky looking. Well, I suppose if you don't know, you don't know. Achihara prayasascha means accumulating and too much endeavor. Prajalpo, nonsense talk, which can also be things like watching tennis or the World Cup. That's also considered prajalpa. Niyamagraha means following rules and regulations really, really strictly, or not following them at all. It's the other side of the coin. You're following all the rules and regulations, but you don't really know why you're doing it. You're just doing it so that you can look better than everybody else. You can look down your nose at everybody else. So in religion, that can be there quite a lot. Niyamagraha. People follow the rules and regulations strictly just so they can look down on those that aren't. And then because they don't really know why they're following them, then the next minute they reject the rules and regulations completely. So they go from fanatic to whimsically giving them up because they didn't understand. So that's niyamagraha. Jana sangas. Jana is like the general populace, jana. And sangas means the association. So if you're very concerned with the opinion of other people, then you need to renounce that as well, because that'll deviate you off the path. And lolyam means to become greedy for shabdya, for the devotee, for the saintly person. You have to follow in the footsteps of the great saints and reject the general populace. Otherwise, vinashyati. Otherwise, your bhakti will be destroyed. Bhakti vinashyati. So he says the things, all the wrong things that you should avoid first, and then he goes on, Utsahana chatarya tata kama prabhadna sangha chagat silvati shabdya bhakti prasidhati. Following the footsteps of the great devotees, and be enthusiastic, confident, and be patient. So one's devotional service is spoiled when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities. 1, eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than required. 2, over-endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain. 3, talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters. 4, practicing the scripture and rules and regulations only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement. Or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically. 5, associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. And 6, being greedy for mundane achievements. Also, lolyam is being greedy for mundane achievements. A sannyasi should have an institution meant to preach Krishna consciousness. He need not accumulate money for himself. We recommend that as soon as money accumulates in our Krishna consciousness movement, 50% of it should be invested in printing books and 50% for expenditures, especially in establishing centers all over the world. The managers of the Krishna consciousness movement should be extremely cautious in regard to this point. Otherwise, money will be the cause of lamentation, illusion, fear, anger, material attachment, material poverty, and unnecessary hard work. So there's a warning for all the temple presidents in this one. When I was alone in Vrindavan, I never attempted to construct mats or temples. Rather, I was fully satisfied with the small amount of money I could gather by selling Bhakti Kaudad, and thus I would provide for myself and also print the literature. When I went to foreign countries, I lived according to the same principle. But when Europeans and Americans began to give money profusely, I started temples and deity worship. The same principle should still be followed. Whatever money is collected should be spent for Krishna and not a farthing for sense gratification. This is the Bhagavat principle. Any questions or comments?
Thank you for the first part. How does one protect oneself from falling victim to false prestige or being proud? How can you guard against that?
Well, the first thing is to see it, and then to be honest about what you can give up and what you can't give up. You have to concentrate on your sincere endeavor to be Krishna conscious and not become discouraged or distracted by weaknesses that you become aware of that are there in the heart. Sometimes Krishna consciousness can be discouraging because the nature of being a proud and prestigious person is you have an inflated idea of yourself. And then suddenly you may make mistakes, or you may on one day everything comes crashing down and you reflect on in so many ways you're failing or you're not coming up to the standard in so many ways, and then when you realize that, you become discouraged. But the reason you become discouraged is because you had the wrong idea of yourself in the first place. You thought you were Rupa Goswami II and you were going to show everybody that, and then suddenly that's not actually the case. And it can be disorientating because the process of advancement in Krishna consciousness is that your false ego gets crushed to fine dust. But the false ego is who we think we are. So when we're getting our false ego crushed to fine dust, we start thinking we're being crushed and we're being annihilated. So then we become discouraged. So it does help to become a little deep in our understanding of the philosophy, so that when we experience that discouragement, we can recalibrate, and instead of it being negative, we can be positive. And we can think, yeah, well, I'm so unworthy, I'm so unqualified, so therefore I need to be really humble, I need to be really appreciative, really submissive, and really keen to serve other devotees. That should be the conclusion, Not that because I've realized now that I'm the least advanced in the society of devotees, so therefore let me leave the society of devotees because I don't want to be an ugly duckling in amidst the swans. But the ugly duckling will also become a swan in due course of time, but he just has to be patient, and he has to be humble, and he has to stop quacking. I think this. I think that. This is my opinion. They say opinions are like belly buttons. Everyone's got one, but just because you've got one doesn't mean I want to see it. Hey, look at this. This is my belly button. Yeah, it's okay. When you've seen one belly button, you've seen them all. So opinions, we keep our opinions to ourselves, and we don't concern ourselves with other people's opinions of us. They say that what people think of us is none of our business, because what people think of us isn't right anyway. It's them processing things in an immature way, generally, with Kanishtas especially. So it's no business of ours. It's no business of theirs, really, what they think. What you think of, what your opinion is of things, is really of little consequence. We have to learn to put that aside, Oh, and in my opinion, well, that's okay. That's just your opinion. Big deal, your opinion. What's the opinion of the Shastra? What's the opinion of the Acharyas, of the advanced devotees? Let me ask them what their opinion is and apply that instead. So it's kind of like in the beginning you get your patishta, your false prestige, dragged away from you, and suddenly you're there and amongst the devotees quacking away like a little duck. And then eventually you become a swan. And then when you become a swan, then patishta comes back again. And then you've got to, okay, now I have actually got something to be proud of, but now I have to avoid that. I have to understand I've become a swan only by the mercy of my Guru Maharaj and the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and the devotees. I've been elevated to this position. So I'm very appreciative of that, and I don't forget where I've come from. One devotee, another devotee was looking at his passport, and the devotee had been in the movement now about 10, 15 years. He was quite a nice, gentle devotee. And on the passport, he had these sideburns, which had grown here like this, And he looked really gaunt, Another devotee was looking at it, and he says, "It's a good job you joined the movement, because it looks like you're going to be a wolf in your next life." He had all the wolf characteristics in his face. So, so then you can become proud that, look, I'm such a nice devotee now. Everything's been smoothed off. I'm okay, So you have to be careful of that one as well. Any other questions or comments? So Srila Prabhupada's very nicely giving his example here that he didn't have a lot of money, so he was just happy printing his Back to Godheads, and he was satisfied doing that, If that's all that his endeavors to spread Krishna consciousness had culminated in, then he would have been okay, because he was trying to follow his Guru Maharaj. He knew his Guru Maharaj wanted this. He wanted him to preach in English. He was doing it, so he was satisfied, But then Krishna decided, okay. So sometimes it can be like that as well. You can be struggling in Krishna consciousness, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of result taking place. But then suddenly everything can happen if you don't give up, Like there's the story of the man who was growing bamboo, and he was watering it. His guru gave him a seed and told him to water it, and he was trying to grow it. And in the first year, a tiny little sprout came up and nothing else. Second year, sprout got a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, and he thought he was just wasting his time. And then suddenly, in the fifth year, the bamboo just shot up, like 20 feet in the air in just a couple of weeks, or months. And the spiritual master said to him, in the beginning, the bamboo lays all its roots, first of all, and you don't see that going on, but there's a lot of work going on. And then when it does shoot up, it's got such a strong root network that it can then support the bamboo rod. Whereas if it just shot up straight away, then it would collapse. So we have to be careful that we don't try to rush the process and try to become a big devotee quickly, but that we just allow our roots to embed deeply into understanding the philosophy, this full awareness that we're a servant. We're not an enjoyer and we're not a controller, we're a servant. And that takes a little while to recalibrate the ego. And then when we're good with that, we're good with doing service, we don't mind being a servant. And then the bamboo can start to shoot up and other forms of perfection will start to manifest.
So, does that mean that we have to abandon making plans for things and just kind of let ourselves be directed through the process?
Yeah, or the plans, at least get them checked. I was planning on winning the lottery, or I was planning on making a couple of million and jet setting around the world and telling people about Krishna. Whatever it is, you bounce the plan off somebody. Some older devotee, more advanced devotee. Shishi Konitai, Maya Pashashi ki jai, Shri Tulsinath Maharaj ki jai, Shri Giridhar Harilal ki jai, Shri Nrsingadev Bhagavan ki jai. They said that when the devotees were waiting to see Srila Prabhupada, they had all these different plans and possible problems that they were going to encounter and different difficulties, and they'd be waiting outside to speak to Srila Prabhupada. And the aura that Prabhupada gave off, such a powerful presence, they started feeling like they were in the spiritual world. And then when the door opened and they went in to see Srila Prabhupada, they couldn't remember what the problems were or their plans were. They were just, what would you like me to do, Srila Prabhupada? Okay, that's great. And off they went, So it's important to get that type of exposure because in the light of somebody else's Krishna consciousness, all the shadows can then be easily dissipated. And generally our plans are quite shadowy because we're not quite sure about what we're doing. We're not even quite sure about what our position is. So if we're trying to use ourselves as a platform to make projections upon, and the platform itself is wobbly, then it means all the projections can just collapse very easily. We have all these plans and then we get up one day and we don't feel like doing it anymore. No, I don't like that idea, that plan at all now. Just because of the mental platform. And they're considered figments of the mind, plans for the future, and memories of the past. They're all figments of the mind. It may not be actually correct, the memory that we have of the past. Somebody else may say, that wasn't what it was like at all. But we've fashioned it, customized it to suit whatever it is that we want. And of course in the future, definitely, it'll be wrong. Shiv Ramesh was just giving a class, and the devotee was asking him, what if a Vaishnava hurts us? How do we let that go so that we can go back to Godhead? And Shiv Ramesh was saying, we're in Kali Yuga, and we're in the pits of the jail. We're right down at the bottom. Like Kali Yuga is the bottom of the barrel. Everyone else has gone back by now in the other three yugas. What's left now is the dredges, the real bozos. So we're in the bottom of the barrel, and it's Kali Yuga. And he says, if something goes right, be surprised. And he says, and it won't last for long, guaranteed. So generally the plans we're making are all based upon, well, yeah, this will happen, and then this will be really cool, and then that's going to happen, and it'll all be, we don't usually plan that things are going to go wrong, but they generally do, unfortunately. So the best thing is just to plan that I'm going to continue on with determination, irrespective of what's going on externally. And then when you get fixed internally, the coming and goings of the material world, They're just things that you have to endure until you go back to Godhead. Like the person on the train in India, he's meditating on being in Vrindavan, and he's in one of those really, really cramped. You ever been on a train in India? You wouldn't believe how many people you can get in, you know. And there's chickens in there as well, and sheep, and then there's people over you on top. The whole place is jam-packed. And if you're sitting there and you're just thinking of the situation, then you'll react. You'll become very upset and disturbed. But if you're sitting there and you're thinking, only another 4 hours and I'll be in Vrindavan. Only another 3 hours and 59 minutes and I'll be in Vrindavan. Only another 3 hours and 58 minutes and I'll be in Vrindavan, you know. Then you can kind of tolerate it. So if we can become fixed on the goal, the plans that we're making are intermediary steps to achieving the goal. So the sadhya, the goal, that has to be firmly established. I want to chant Shuddhanam. I want to be able to chant the pure holy name so that when I chant, I can enter into the pastimes of Krishna. I'll go into the pastimes and I'll know who I am in the pastimes. That's what I want. That's my goal. When I sit, I want to leave this illusory world and go into reality. That's what I want. That's the goal. And that's really strongly embedded. And then whatever else is going on, okay, I'm just going to take that to help me chant the holy name more purely, whatever it is. It's either going to help me chant better, or it's going to make me chant worse. That should be the only criterion. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, "There's nothing in the 14 worlds but this, the jiva and the holy name." So basically, the jiva's here, and the pure holy name's here, and everything else is of no consequence. It's just a question of us getting closer. And I was listening to Shiva Ramraj yesterday. He was talking about chanting, and he was saying, when you're chanting, it's not the holy name. It's not the pure holy name. It's a noise that you're making. Oh yeah, I need to wash my socks. My socks are stinking. But look at his socks. His are falling off. You can see the heel through the. Have I got any more socks? This is what japa is. This is not the holy name. You know, it's a million miles away. Holy name is when you're saying Krishna, and there's a blue cowherd boy there when he's lifting Govardhan Hill, and then they're going to go and take the cows. This is the pure holy name. So we should be chanting, understanding that we're trying to get to the point of actually saying the pure holy name. Like we're seeing the deities, but we're not really seeing the deities. But we want to get to the point where we can see the deities, that the deities are breathing, smiling, blinking, looking at us. We want to get to the point, then we're seeing the deities. Up until then, we're practicing chanting and we're practicing seeing the deities to get to that point. So we have to be firmly focused on that. That's really what I want, and not distracted by all the different things the mind's coming up with, you know. Relentlessly pushing toward that. And then if you're chanting like that and that's your goal, then you won't be so discouraged at the fact that right now what's coming out your mouth isn't actually the holy name. You think, okay, it's not, but every time I chant, I'm getting closer, I'm making my desire stronger. That's what I want. That's what I want, you know. When I was in Vrindavan the very first time, the devotee that was leading us, Pundarik Prabhu, he told everyone, okay, everyone, stop. No, don't go any further. We're coming into a section of Govardhan Hill now. Whatever you're thinking, whatever desire that comes up, that'll get fulfilled. So get your head together. Don't just wander in there thinking about the latest iPhone or I wish that person would drop dead or whatever it is that's going on, you know. Forget all that. And focus. I want the pure holy name, Shuddhanam. I want to go back to Goloka. That's, get that straight, you know. And when he said it, I was thinking, oh yeah, okay, here we go, another one, you know. I wasn't in good consciousness at all, yeah. My feet were sore. I was thinking, okay, let's get on with it. And then I kind of stumbled into that part, and I was thinking, the only thing I want is a drink of water. And then as we were walking through it, we came to the end. This devotee out of nowhere comes up and he goes, would you like a bottle of water? We hadn't seen a sight of him anywhere, on the paracam. He just comes wandering out and says, "There's a bottle." I was drinking the bottle of water thinking, oh, it's a shame. I could have asked for a Prema or I ended up with a bottle of water. So when you're chanting, really focus on what it is you want. That's your core principle. You want to achieve success in the human form of life, and that success means the ability to chant Shuddha Nam. Not Namavas, not a shadow. Sometimes the devotees think they're doing really well if they're chanting and hearing the holy name and not thinking of anything else and not falling asleep and they're thinking, wow, I'm really going places. That's just Namavas. That's just a shadow of the name. You've got to push on through Namavas into Shuddha Nam. Shuddha Nam is like the sun has risen. It's not just like the sun coming up and things are getting a bit lighter. And you're thinking, oh, it's going to be day soon, Oh, that's good. We're not in the darkness anymore. Great. But the goal is Shuddha Nam, that the sun is shining over your head, the zenith of the sunrise, and there's not a shadow in sight. Everything is fully illuminated. Everything is very clear. Any other questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Guru, thank you for your question. You're talking about plant making. What I observe usually for grihastas, there's like the more plants are involved, in order to provide for family, getting a job and things like that, compared to brahmacharis. I feel like maybe in temple from brahmacharis, you like mostly rely on temple, right? You don't even plan about what's going to be for breakfast, just whatever's cook is going to make, so that's what I'm not going to eat. So how also for grihastas also is it more difficult for grihastas to get out of that mentality of plan making?
Well, it's interesting because a brahmachari is to be a grihasta means you have to be more advanced than a brahmachari because you take responsibility for things, and there's so many different forms of sense gratification now at your fingertips. Whereas brahmachari, you just were given what you needed, and if you needed something, you just went and asked for it and brought a receipt back. So life was very simple. And then the brahmachari starts feeling like, well, I want a bit of independence. So then he gets that, but then with that comes all the responsibility, and that matures him, and he starts after 25 years of that, he's thinking, wow, can't wait to be vanaprastha like I was when I was a brahmachari. And the vanaprastha is like going back to being a brahmachari. And your life becomes simplified again. So generally for most of us, not everyone, but generally for most of us, we have to go through the school of hard knocks so that when we come out the other end, and that's why Yadunandana Maharaj was saying that the success rate was much higher if you just go through the process. Although you think, oh, just save time, we'll skip all that because we'll have to renounce it anyway, so we'll bother. We generally have to go through it. And yeah, one of the things that you become fatigued by is that you do have to make plans as a grihasta, because you've got to plan how you're going to pay the bills, how you're going to get the money in, how you're going to have sufficient food. You may eat something at the temple, but you'll also have your own times and situations when you're preparing your own food, and the car needs MOT, and so many other things come in. And sometimes brahmacharis are staying brahmacharis not because they're renounced, but because they don't want the hassle of having to look after a household situation. Some people have to stay brahmachari. So they're not really a brahmachari, but they're just a bachelor. They still like all the attractive things that come. Maybe they can't have a woman, but they can have everything else. Nice car, nice phone, nice book bag, nice dhoti, nice pair of socks, nice watch, all the same stuff that you would have got if you were in a grihasta. But I won't have the woman, it's going to be a lot of hassle, but everything else is good. So, avoiding responsibility. So being a brahmachari, you have to be careful that you don't use that as an excuse for not taking the initiative, and realizing you will have to make You will have to be organized, and you will have to consider things. Prabhupada Prana, whenever you come in contact with him, there's always so many other things that he's considering that you never even think of. He's like that, So even if you're a brahmachari, you should try and learn to do that. And then that, taking the initiative and responsibility, that will elevate you. And then maybe you won't need to have to go through the greatest ashram.
So if someone's got a household, I've got a house down the road, but it's getting paid off with government money. So I'm not essentially working for it. I'm taking it, I'm entitled to this money because I went through some experiences and I've been affected by them. Is that taking the easy way out? If I want to be a proper grihasta, do I need to be actually going out and doing the actual hard work, being in amongst all the karmis and all the difficult energy and all the temptations? It was said to me by someone that Krishna doesn't really accept your offerings if you haven't had to put the hard work in. So could it be that this money that I'm getting, the offerings aren't really worth anything because I've not had to endeavor for that sort of thing?
Well, they're getting the benefit. You see, the system, the old system was, the Vedic system was, the brahmacharis would be looked after. And so if you're being facilitated, then it means the powers that be are getting the benefit of that. You're helping to engage them. They're getting some sukriti. And because sukriti is very, very rare in Kali Yuga, most of it's going on bombs and all kinds of nonsense, So you're getting a chance for some of that, tiny, tiny amount of that, to go on maintaining you so that you can perform devotional service. So then they get sukriti. The leaders get sukriti. It may seem infinitesimal, but even a tiny fraction of something when there's nothing is still very significant. And then grihasta means one that's married with children. That's the responsibility. And up until then, you may be in training to become brahmachari. And then once you're a strong brahmachari, then you can take on a woman and look after her without being swayed or fall under the sway of sensual desire. And then the woman has respect because she feels protected by the man rather than being exploited by the man. And then everything flourishes very nicely. So we can take it that the situation that we're in has been arranged for us. And if it's been authorized for us, then that must be Krishna's hand in there. And he's put me in this situation right now to facilitate me. So thank you very much, Krishna. You've given me a roof over my head. I've got some little independence. I can come and go, and I can get strong. I can build up slowly, slowly, slowly. Nothing too fast, just what I can sustain right now. We just do what we can do. And the things that we can't do, we don't try to do them. Because those things that we can't do will become things that we can do if we keep doing the things that we can do. So we have to focus on what we can do, not on what we can't do. Don't have unmet expectations of yourself, and therefore put yourself under undue pressure. I mean, it's difficult enough it is in Kali Yuga without making it more difficult for yourself. So you just accept in a very cool-headed way, okay, well, this is the speed that I can go at, and this is what I can handle, and I can maintain that. And that's the real trick in Krishna consciousness. If you can do this for the next 40 years continually, then guaranteed in 40 years, that will have made such a huge difference. Whereas if you try to rush everything, and then you end up all or nothing, and so you get nothing. And devotees can come and they can learn loads of slokas and do loads of books and be really enthusiastic, and they're there for everything. Everything's great. They want it. And then the next minute they're not even there. And you've got somebody else coming along, and then they're not doing so much, but they're doing what they can do. And they're still there 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, and then maybe they're thinking, then I'll get initiated or whatever. They've been very, very slow. Slow and steady wins the race. Fast and furious, you'll fall on your face. So be slow and steady. Just plod along, and just try to increase the things that you can do, bit by bit, just in very small increments, rather than. I was just reading that this morning, actually. It was Chaitanya Charan, and it's a beautiful book to read. 365 meditations. So every day you read one page, and it's your meditation for the day. So the meditation for today is when a little toddler takes its first step. You could say, I mean, the parents are walking around everywhere. They walk, 20 miles a day, and they're like, that was absolutely useless. What was the point of that, But they don't. They photograph it, they video it. They're like, wow, every ball, So we should celebrate the small steps that we take in Krishna consciousness and not become discouraged, because that is totally significant compared to where we were at. That's great. And you're making progress. And then they're not expecting the kid, okay, let's take him down to the racetrack. Let's do the 400-meter sprint. Oh, what's happened there? Oh, he just fell over. That was a bit useless, wasn't it? I thought you could walk now. The kid's just learning to get up on his feet for like a couple of seconds, and he's back down on his diapers, But that is brilliant, fantastic, because we know he'll eventually get there. So don't allow what seems like very small, puny successes to discourage you. Just celebrate that. Wow, that's great, fantastic. Be happy with that. And then eventually you will be able to walk and run and dance and jump 15 feet in the air when you're fired up. But that'll come later. Don't try and do it now. ISKCON Guru Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Go to Premanandi.
Haribo. His Grace Adhoksaja Krishna Prabhu Ki. Yeah.
All of you.